The secret decision framework airlines don't teach new captains. Clear model explained. Welcome back to Captain's Chair. Let me start with a truth that flight schools conveniently forget to mention. Handling emergencies in the real world is nothing like what you've been taught. If you think it's just about memorizing bold-face items and running through a checklist, you're about as prepared for a real emergency as a cat is for a bath. Let me tell you about the time we lost hydraulics over the South China Sea. After completing the immediate ECAM actions, the real work began. There I was, staring at a perfectly good checklist that had absolutely nothing to say about which airport to divert to, how to manage 300 increasingly anxious passengers, or what to tell the company when they started calculating how many thousands of dollars this was going to cost. That's when I relied on the clear model, the decision framework I'm about to share with you that airlines somehow forget to teach new captains. Look, emergencies in the cockpit aren't just about which buttons to push and then land. That's the fantasy version they sell you in flight school, like those weight loss ads that promise you'll look like a fitness model after just 2 weeks of their miracle pill. The reality? After you close the QRH or say ECAM actions complete, you're left with the real challenge, making critical decisions that affect hundreds of lives while everyone from your first officer to your company dispatcher is looking at you like you're supposed to have all the answers. I'm Captain James, and after decades of flying the Airbus fleet, I've developed a decision-making framework that has not only kept me employed, but has also impressed countless examiners during command assessments, which, let's be honest, is the aviation equivalent of getting your cat to actually acknowledge your existence. Today, I'm diving into the CLEAR model, a systematic approach to handling abnormal situations that I detail in my command book. It's the framework that separates the commanders from the pilots who are secretly hoping the problem will fix itself if they just stare at it long enough. And by the way, if you want to master this material, I've created templates for breaking down these elements in my command books on Amazon. You just need to fill in the blanks for your own area of operations. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure book, except the adventure is don't get fired or crash, and the choices are all terrifyingly specific regulations. The initial response, when everything goes bing. Picture this. You're cruising along at 37,000 feet, sipping your coffee, contemplating whether you remembered to record that show you wanted to watch, when suddenly, bang! Master caution light, followed by some system alert that immediately makes you wish you'd paid more attention during that specific part of ground school. Your first response should be, stand by. That's right, not jumping into action, not frantically flipping switches, but a calm, collected standby. It's the aviation equivalent of taking a deep breath before responding to your mother-in-law's passive-aggressive comment about your parenting style. This pause is crucial because it prevents you from making a knee-jerk reaction that could potentially make things worse. I once flew with a captain who, upon hearing an unusual noise, immediately started shutting down systems before even identifying the problem. His approach was less methodical troubleshooting and more panicked whack-a-mole, which surprisingly is not recommended in any aircraft manual I've ever read. After standby, you need to remember the basics. Aviate, navigate, communicate. First, ensure the aircraft is flying safely. Check your autopilot, flight directors, and auto thrust. Confirm your FCU settings. Then, know where you are. Check your MSA, minimum safe altitude. Confirm your position and destination. Finally, communicate. Announce, I have control, ECAM actions, and inform ATC as needed. C. Clarify. Write this down. The first step in the CLEAR model is to clarify the situation. What exactly is happening? What systems are affected? Is this a real emergency or just an annoying nuisance? This is where your knowledge of aircraft systems comes into play. Check the ECAM, Electronic Centralized Aircraft Monitor, or EICAS, Engine Indication and Crew Alerting System. Messages. Look at secondary indications. Cross-check with other systems. Is this a single failure or part of a cascading series of failures? During this phase, you're also consulting documentation, OEBS, Operations Engineering Bulletins, the QRH, Quick Reference Handbook, FCOM, flight crew operating manual, and possibly calling engineering for advice. It's like being a detective, except the crime scene is moving at 500 miles per hour and occasionally experiencing turbulence. Don't forget to check secondary indications by reviewing other ECAM pages. Sometimes what appears to be one problem is actually a symptom of something else. And always consider how this issue will affect you at your destination. That hydraulic leak might be manageable now, but what does it mean for your landing configuration? I once had a hydraulic system issue that initially seemed straightforward, but after clarifying the situation, we discovered it was affecting multiple systems in ways not immediately obvious. By taking the time to fully understand the problem, we avoided making decisions that could have complicated our situation further. It's like when you think you have a simple plumbing issue at home, but after proper investigation, you discover your entire house is actually built on an ancient burial ground. Slightly different scale of problem. L. Look at your options. Crucial for command assessments. Once you've clarified the situation, it's time to look for solutions. And this is where many pilots fall short. They jump to the most obvious solution without considering all options. It's like deciding to take a shortcut through what you think is a park, only to discover it's actually a swamp filled with creatures that view you as a walking appetizer. This step involves determining whether you need to land ASAP, for red or amber warnings, continue to your destination, divert to an alternate, or return to your departure airport. But it's not just about picking one of these options. It's about developing multiple potential solutions. This is where input from others becomes invaluable. Your first officer, cabin crew, engineering, ATC, and your company's operations control. I always make it a point to ask, what are we missing? Because sometimes the best insights come from unexpected sources. I once had a flight attendant provide crucial information about a passenger medical issue that influenced our diversion decision in a way I hadn't considered. During this phase, you're also gathering essential information like weather reports and landing distance calculations for potential diversion airports. It's like preparing for multiple possible futures simultaneously, which makes you either a skilled airline captain or a time-traveling superhero, depending on who you ask. Now comes the critical thinking part, evaluating your options using what I call the AAWTF framework. And no, that's not an expression of disbelief, though that might also be appropriate. It stands for aircraft, airport, weather, terrain, and fuel. For aircraft, consider, how does this issue affect our landing distance? Can we still do a Cat 2 approach? Are we looking at an overweight landing? Will we need to prepare for an engine-out missed approach? For airport, evaluate. What's the weather like at potential diversion airports? Are there any relevant NOTAMs? What approaches are available? Is there a curfew we need to consider? Which airport has the longest runway? For weather, check. What are the METARs and TAFs at various airports? Are we dealing with icing conditions? Will weather be a factor in our decision? For terrain, assess. What's the grid MORA, minimum off-route altitude? What's the MOCA, minimum obstruction clearance altitude? What are the flight plan MORAs? For fuel, calculate. Do we have enough for our en route diversion? What about holding? Can we handle missed approaches? Do we have a backup plan? Have we accounted for fuel penalty factors like single engine operation or depressurization? This comprehensive evaluation prevents tunnel vision and ensures you're making a decision based on all relevant factors, not just the most obvious ones. It's like choosing a restaurant not just based on the food, but also considering the location, price, whether your picky in-laws will find something to eat, and if the parking situation will make you want to abandon your car and walk home. E. Evaluate your options. After evaluating all these factors, you make your decision. But crucially, you also develop a backup plan. In aviation, we have a saying, Plan A is the plan we'll probably never do. Plan B is the one we'll actually execute. And Plan C is what we'll end up doing when everything goes to hell. So why do we even bother with Plan A? Well, it gives us something to laugh about during the debrief. But seriously, redundancy is your friend. It's like bringing both an umbrella and a raincoat to England. Excessive? Perhaps. Necessary? Absolutely. Because in aviation, Plan A works right up until the moment it doesn't. And then you better have a solid plan B ready to go. This is where you take all that information you've gathered and make a clear decision. Not a tentative, maybe we should, but a definitive, we are diverting to Taipei. This decisiveness is what separates commanders from pilots who are just along for the ride. Remember, in the real world, there's rarely a perfect solution, just the best solution given the circumstances. Your job isn't to find the perfect answer. It's to find the safest, most practical option and commit to it with confidence. It's like choosing between bad haircut options when you're already in the chair. Sometimes you just have to pick one and own it. A. Act. Remember. APCOC. After you've evaluated your options and made a decision, it's time to act. This is where I see a lot of pilots struggle, especially in the simulator. Instead of communicating their plan, they just start punching buttons and going through checklists like they're playing a very high-stakes game of whack-a-mole. I use a simple acronym for this step, a PPCOCA, ATC. Let air traffic control know what you're planning to do. P. Purser. Call the purser to inform them of the situation. P. Passengers. Make sure you inform the passengers of what's going on. C. Company. Notify the company of your decision. O. Overweight. Consider if you'll be landing overweight and what that means. C. Checklists. Now you can go through the QRH or checklists as you prepare. Only after you've communicated your plan should you start implementing it. Prepare the MCDU, brief the approach, and execute your decision with confidence. This communication step is crucial. I've seen captains make excellent decisions, but fail to communicate them effectively, leading to confusion and increased workload. It's like having the winning lottery numbers, but forgetting to buy the ticket. All that potential wasted. And remember, when you're making those passenger announcements, try to sound confident even if you're internally screaming. Nothing says everything is fine, like a captain whose voice cracks mid-sentence while explaining that the strange noise is totally normal. I once had to make an announcement about a diversion due to a technical issue, and a passenger later told me they knew everything was under control because I sounded bored by the whole situation. Little did they know I was gripping the PA handset so tightly my knuckles were whiter than an accountant's tan line. Don't forget to review your aircraft's status pages and summaries. Do a brief incorporating issues upon landing, and just before you start the approach, do a quick FRPP check, which includes checking your flight plan waypoints, radio aids tuned correctly, RNP performance, and your landing speeds are correct with the correct flap setting. It's like doing a final check of your tax return before submitting it, except the penalty for errors involves more than just an awkward conversation with the IRS. R. Review. The step everyone forgets. The final step is to review your decision as the situation evolves. Stay engaged throughout the execution of your plan, continuously monitoring for new information that might require you to adjust your approach. Regularly ask yourself, what have I missed? And what's going to happen next? This keeps you sharp and prevents complacency. Perhaps you had a low-pressure hydraulic issue, and now that you're at a lower altitude, you can get your hydraulic back by turning the pump back on. Or maybe you've been so focused on the technical issue that you've forgotten to update the passengers, who are now crafting their final text messages to loved ones because they assume the worst. This is also where you revisit your plan B. Is it still valid, given how the situation has evolved? Do you need to develop a plan C? It's like having not just a spare tire in your car, but also a bicycle in the trunk, and the number for a helicopter rental service, because sometimes one backup plan isn't enough. Remember, the FCTM, Flight Crew Training Manual, defines land ASAP differently based on the severity of the situation. For red warnings, land as soon as possible at the nearest suitable airport at which a safe approach and landing can be made. For amber warnings, consider landing at the nearest suitable airport. For engine failure, an emergency situation exists and the captain shall land at the nearest suitable airport. These distinctions matter because they guide the urgency of your response. It's like the difference between "we're out of milk" and "the house is on fire." Both require action, but with vastly different levels of urgency. Putting it all together, the clear model in action. So what does all this look like in practice? Let me walk you through a scenario. We were cruising at flight level 370 over the South China Sea when we got a hydraulic system low pressure warning. Instead of immediately descending or declaring an emergency, we followed the CLEAR model. Clarify. We identified. It was the green hydraulic system, checked the ECAM actions, and consulted the FCOM to understand the implications. We discovered we'd lose certain braking capabilities and a few other items. Look for solutions. We considered continuing to our destination, Hong Kong, diverting to the nearest suitable airport, Taipei, or returning to our departure point, Okinawa. We gathered weather information for all three and calculated landing distances. Using the AAWTF framework, we determined that while we could safely continue to Hong Kong, Taipei offered a long runway and better weather conditions, which would be advantageous. Evaluate. Our decision was to divert to Taipei with a nearby airport as our new alternate. Act. We informed ATC of our situation and decision to divert to Taipei. We called the purser to brief them, made a PA to passengers explaining the diversion was due to a technical issue requiring attention, and notified company operations. We then ran through all relevant checklists and briefed the approach. Review. Throughout the descent and approach, we continuously monitored the hydraulic system and reviewed our plan. We discussed what would happen if we lost another hydraulic system and prepared a contingency for that scenario. The result? A smooth, uneventful landing in Taipei, happy passengers who were only slightly delayed, and maintenance personnel who were prepared and waiting for us. The only casualty was my planned dinner in Hong Kong, which I'm still slightly bitter about. And yes, I did write a strongly worded letter to the hydraulic system, which it promptly ignored, much like my cat ignores me when I call its name. The CLEAR model. Your path to command success. So, what does all this mean for you as an aspiring airline captain? It means that developing and using the CLEAR model is not just about handling abnormal situations. It's about demonstrating the methodical and organized approach expected of a successful airline captain. It's the difference between being the captain everyone wants to fly with and being the one who inspires passengers to write their wills on cocktail napkins. And here's the thing. The templates I mentioned for breaking down these elements are available in my command books on Amazon. You just need to fill in the blanks for your own area of operations. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure book, except the adventurers don't get fired or crash, and the choices are all terrifyingly specific regulations. Start by practicing this model in your day-to-day operations. When faced with a decision, even a simple one like whether to accept a shortcut from ATC, run through the steps. Clarify the situation, look for solutions, evaluate options, act decisively, and review continuously. It's like CrossFit for your brain, except you won't feel compelled to tell everyone you do it. Practice talking through abnormal scenarios using this model. Record yourself and listen back. Do you sound confident and methodical, or do you sound like you're making it up as you go along? Would you want to be a passenger on your own flight? If the answer is maybe not, it's time for more practice. The good news, you don't need to wait until you're in command training to start building these habits. You can begin incorporating this level of detail into your decision-making right now, giving you a massive advantage when you eventually step into the left seat. It's like practicing your Oscar acceptance speech years before you're nominated. Weird, yes, but you'll be prepared when the time comes. And yes, I know what you're thinking. But James, my flight school taught me everything I need to know. That's adorable. That's like saying you learned everything about marriage from watching romantic comedies. The real world is messier, more complex, and rarely resolves neatly in 90 minutes with a pop song playing in the background. Look, the truth is that flight schools are great at teaching you how to fly the aircraft, but they're terrible at teaching you how to be a captain. They'll teach you what buttons to push when the engine catches fire, but they won't teach you how to manage the aftermath. The passengers, the company, the paperwork, the investigation. They won't teach you how to make decisions when there's no clear right answer, when every option has drawbacks, when you're tired, stressed, and under pressure. That's why the CLEAR model is so important. It's not just a framework for handling emergencies, it's a framework for thinking like a captain. It's about being methodical, thorough, and decisive. It's about considering all the factors, not just the obvious ones. It's about communicating effectively and staying engaged throughout the process. If this episode saved you from the shock of discovering that handling abnormals is to basic checklist following what chess is to tic-tac-toe, hit subscribe and join me next week when we dive into another critical aspect of airline operations that flight schools conveniently forget to mention, like how to maintain your dignity when you have to make an announcement about a delay due to a minor technical issue that's actually just waiting for someone to find the keys to the catering truck that's blocking your pushback. This is Captain James, signing off from the captain's chair, where we tell you what they don't want you to know, mainly because it would make for awkward conversation in the boarding area. Remember, in aviation, there are old pilots and bold pilots, but no old, bold pilots. Just a bunch of cautious overthinkers with excellent decision-making skills and a healthy fear of both mountains and paperwork.